All right, this is the brand new Sony Xperia 1 Mark V. It's the 1.5, the fifth one. This is a $1,400 pure enthusiast phone from Sony. I've been using it. It came out a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was announced a couple weeks ago, but it's not out yet. But I've been really loving it so far. And just like a lot of their other previous phones, there's some incredible tech here. But if I have to take a step back and Sony realize that these phones are an endangered species for a reason. Like, Sony phones were already a rare breed to start with. I've talked about this before in past videos where I've reviewed the Sony Xperia 5 Mark II and the Xperia 1 Mark III and the 1 Mark IV and the Pro I, etc. All these phones and this one are loaded with features and manual controls and technology, but they also all have like the smallest target demographic, like the narrowest band of people who will actually appreciate everything that they do. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with a product like that existing, but that also has me kind of worried. See, we lost HTC. We lost LG. This is just in the past couple of years. And YouTube commenters would probably have you believing that it was just the negative videos about the smartphones that single-handedly took them down, even though there was huge corporations behind them, and that's clearly not true. But I would like to try something a little bit different today, because I actually think Sony right now looks almost exactly like where Porsche, the car company, used to be. So if we're being generous, Sony smartphones today are like Porsche cars 20 years ago. So Porsche was toiling away making expensive enthusiast sports cars for years. And they were sick. They were really fun cars. But also their sales numbers were anemic and the business itself was actually in danger. So the strategy, to oversimplify, was just give the people what they want. Crossover SUVs are starting to blow up. They're taking off in sales and they're becoming the most popular best-selling vehicle. So they took a bit of a risk as a sports car company and built a Porsche crossover SUV. That was the Porsche Cayenne. That thing went on to become their best-selling vehicle ever by a mile and propped up the whole rest of the business well enough to keep everything else afloat so they could afford to also keep making the expensive enthusiast sports cars. It was kind of sacrilegious at the time for Porsche to make an SUV, but if you ask any Porsche fan today, they're all glad that the Cayenne exists because it enables them to keep making the 911s and the GT3s and everything else that they love so much. So, hear me out, Sony, give the people what they want. Now, importantly, what I'm not saying is for them to stop making these super high-end enthusiast phones, but what I am saying is they need some sort of like mass market appealing phone that people like me can actually recommend to everyone so that they can afford to keep making phones like this. So I'm thinking something in the $600 to $800 range, which isn't totally foreign to them. They can do this. And it needs to keep, of course, all of the character that makes a Sony phone, not just another generic $700 phone, but really think hard about this. So here's 3 things I would do or would recommend for Sony to make a Sony character mass market phone the same way that Porsche made a Porsche character mass market vehicle. So number 1, with the phone itself, you gotta smartly slightly cut down those specs. So this new Sony Xperia 1 Mark V I've been talking about, it has a 6.5 inch, 21 by 9, 120 hertz, 4K HDR OLED display. It's kind of ridiculous. It's one of the most technically impressive parts of any phone, just like the last Sony phone and the one before that. It's literally 643 pixels per inch. It's the sharpest thing you'll see on a mobile device. Sony is the only company I see right now putting 4K displays in their smartphones, and there's a reason for it. So for the mass market phone, 1080p. And I know it sounds sacrilegious because this Sony thing was always a 4K display, but they did have the Xperia 5 Mark III, which is also a 1080p display, and you keep all of the Sony character around the display. Because it's not just the 4K resolution that makes this a Sony thing, but there are also one of very few to be doing the tall 21 by 9 aspect ratio that makes it easier to hold, and the flat panel with no curves around the edges and no hole punch. And it's surrounded by large front-facing speakers because they don't mind a little bit of bezel. They should keep all of that. Now, some of you might also be thinking right now about the Xperia 10 series, which is Sony's line of like more budget-oriented $400-ish phones. Those phones have 60 hertz 1080p displays. I think this should be right in the sweet spot in the middle. Just do a premium mid-range 120 hertz 1080p. And I'd also like to make it a bit smaller. This is a 6.5 inch display, which, like I said, is on the larger side, and while Sony's doing what they can to make it more reachable with 21 by 9, it's still going to be tough for people to reach the top without some hand gymnastics. Mostly because the fingerprint reader / power button is here, and so if you unlock the phone while holding it like this, it's unlikely that you can also reach the top with your thumb. So I'm thinking getting it down to roughly a 6-inch phone, maybe a little less, 1080p display, with Sony character around it all. That's really the biggest spec to cut down. Really, the only other thing you end up missing out on if you make a smaller phone is a slightly smaller battery, but then you're going from a 5,000 milliamp hour battery and a 4K display to a 1080p display with a 4,600 milliamp hour battery. So then number 2, and this is a big one, a better automatic camera. Now, it's specifically automatic cameras. So what you've probably heard me talk about in the past is, do not get it twisted. These are some of the absolute best cameras in any smartphone, but because they are so manually controllable and customizable. That's why the enthusiasts like me love these things and why so many people in that crowd will buy them. But it's just a different world being in full auto. So these have a lot of parallels to shooting with like the Sony Alpha cameras. And then this Xperia 1 Mark V has some interesting new stuff. They've moved up to a 52 megapixel sensor, which is not a number you see very often, but that's really just binning down to 12 megapixels with some extra room for stabilization. And it is a 1.7 times larger sensor than the last gen, with some new optimizations surrounding the sensor tech itself. It's insane. You see, by decoupling the photodiode and transistor from being housed in the same space, they basically free up room to have a larger photodiode in the same area, and that also lets them increase the size and overall performance of the transistor in its own layer. All of this results in better light sensitivity on each sensitive area and larger pixels on their own substrate layers, which results in massively lower noise and improved low light sensitivity. if you know how to use it. So what's frustrating about reviewing these Sony phones is I can say all that and the enthusiasts will appreciate it, but I still can't recommend a $1,400 phone to the masses that still has a slightly confusing, slightly subpar full auto camera mode. Like if you want to dig in and navigate your way around, you can get incredible footage and photos out of these cameras in the more manual modes. But on a Sony phone, first of all, there are 3 camera apps: Cinema Pro, Video Pro, and Photo Pro. And even in the most basic mode of Photo Pro that launches when you just hit that sweet dedicated shutter button, it's a little more complex than most people are used to. There's just a few extra unlabeled buttons. There's just a few weird quirks, like the photo modes are hidden under more, but also night mode and portrait mode are down here at the bottom. It's also weird that the shutter button doesn't blink at all when you take a photo. I know it's just a tiny thing, but regular people expect the viewfinder to blink when they take a picture because every other smartphone does. And for some reason, Sony's doesn't. It seems unnecessary, but this auto mode, it just has to be simplified even more than it already has. Of course, right behind the dumbed down auto modes is a ton of other way more powerful modes. All the manual modes, all the Sony character is still there. But for the masses, I promise you, they just want to like pull the phone out their pocket, launch the camera real quick and take a picture of their friend, their kid, their pet doing something silly. There's something happened right in front of them. They just want to take a quick snap and they want that to be the best picture possible. Just that quick auto, one shot, boom. And I even get a little bit bummed out by the quality of shots from Sony's straight auto mode because I know all of the technology that goes into these cameras. Also, Sony literally makes all of these sensors, so they should have the best vertical integration pipeline in the world, but yet they still get blown out the water by a Pixel or a Samsung phone in these basic point and shoot situations. Sony tends to overexpose a little bit. They don't do HDR scenes as well as the others. They were consistently near dead last in the blind smartphone camera test that I ran last year, where you all voted on the best looking pictures without knowing which camera took which photo. So Sony's full-blown auto mode, despite having all this awesome tech, can still be pretty rough, and fixing that would make a massive difference to making it for the masses. So then number 3, last but not least, treat it like a flagship. Sony, it would be great if you could copy the others' homework a little bit on this one here. I'm not even going to get into the naming of the phones, but you have to put out the phone a week, maybe 2 weeks max after you announce it. Like that, I don't know how else to say it. Like I know there's a lot that goes into launching a phone and of course getting it into carrier stores in certain markets and international markets and getting everything to work. But I think you really need to do as much as possible behind the scenes so that when you reveal the phone, as soon as that hype wave starts to crest, people can buy it. 1 to 2 weeks later, tops. Now, Sony, believe it or not, is making some progress on this. It used to be 6 months of a gap between announcing the phone and it going on sale. Can you imagine that? It's like a phone gets announced in April and you can't actually buy it until like October. It's absurd. But then they got it down to 5. They got it down to 4. This phone was announced May 11th, but B&H has it estimated for July 28th. That would be still almost 3 months after the initial unveiling, which is better than it used to be, but that's still, trust me, that's enough time for people to forget about it and find something else to do with their $1,400. So Sony's got to get this window down to be much, much shorter. So to summarize, there's clearly nothing wrong with Sony making these incredibly high-end, impressive enthusiast phones. Just like there was nothing wrong with Porsche making their awesome high-end enthusiast sports cars. But Porsche needed the Cayenne to survive. And I think Sony's going to need some type of mass appeal, obvious for the masses type phone that still has the character of all the stuff that makes a Sony phone special. I think it'll be a bit smaller version of this. I don't think
world to find some of the hardest possible locations on GeoGuessr. I just asked GHK for some hard locations to put some of the best GeoGuessr players in the world to the test. If they guess the country right, they get $50. If they don't guess the country right, they get 0.
You get Nothing!
I started off with RC, who's a pro known for being specifically good at the USA, and more specifically, very good at Georgia. Unless. Alright, we're with RC here, who's known for being one of the best GeoGuessr players in the world. RC, how we feeling?
Feeling okay. I think I
Okay.
could maybe do this.
All we need is the country. Are you ready?
Yep.
Round 1.
Okay, so my first thought was like Europe, probably. The problem is though, like this antenna is really weird. It looks kind of short, like stubby, a little suspicious.
Sussy.
Like even the color of the car is kind of throwing me off with this coverage because it's like wintry and like or like early spring, which like I kind of associate with Europe. Like you think like Bulgaria or like Slovakia or something, but I'm really not seeing it with this antenna. I also had a thought like, I mean, I've never seen it before, but like I wonder if South Korea could have this antenna because of the like coverage type, I guess. US is always an option, like if it's something weird, but I don't recognize this, but I can't rule out US at the same time. And then, yeah, we're kind of just stuck with Europe. I don't know, like I still feel like South Korea is just the most likely here. The coverage can pass for South Korea. The trees, like those like piney trees in the back could definitely pass for South Korea. Yeah, I guess I'll say South Korea. That's my
South
final
Korea.
answer.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah. Yes.
RC. You consider me a friend, right?
Yeah.
I would never pick a location like Georgia in the USA on this for you to go South Korea on, right?
Oh no. Oh no. Is it really?
It's Georgia, yeah.
Oh man. That's so weird because I've never seen this car before in Georgia.
If it makes you feel better, I also went South Korea. Alright, photo number 2. Good luck.
Unfortunately, it didn't get that much easier. Like, I'm looking at the car and we kind of have like this weird blur. I don't know if it's like a larger blur. I don't know if it's Japan or maybe Taiwan. But that was like my first idea that I went to. Like, trees definitely kind of feel Asian as well. Yeah, we see some Taiwanese poles in the back. So I think this one can safely go Taiwan unless you're somehow trolling me. But I consider you a friend. So I think I'm going to lock in Taiwan as my final answer.
This is actually downtown Atlanta. Imagine.
No way.
The fact that
Got
you're
me
like,
good there.
yeah. No, yeah, this is Taiwan.
Yes.
Alright,
Woo.
50. Let's do one more. I'll
All right.
trick him out. I had to bring your ego up a bit. You know, you can't get him too down.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
You kept me grounded with the Georgia one, but now.
All right, photo number 3.
So, very interesting rock wall, first of all. Love that rock wall. It looks kind of like volcanic. The houses are interesting. I'm trying to like get a vibe on them. I could see them being like Peru. It's also quite dry. Barely any trees. I feel like we would at least see like a tiny bit of car here, and I'd see like no car. So I'm gonna say no on the Africa stuff here. I don't feel like it looks like Indo or Philly or any of those. And then like Turkey slightly went through my mind, but I feel like this doesn't look Turkish enough. I don't know. I feel like Peru is probably the most likely. Yeah, I think I'll lock in Peru here.
We are in Senegal.
Oh my god, it was Africa. Dang.
Yeah.
Okay, but I wasn't thinking Senegal to be honest.
Yeah, neither
like
was I. I went Turkey on this.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you didn't get
That is
Georgia,
pretty.
but you did get Taiwan, and you won $50. So that's, you know.
All right.
Narita Airport is one of the main arrival points for international tourists, but surprisingly, it's not close to Tokyo at all. Travel from the airport into the city can take 40 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on your destination. With numerous transport options, it can be hard to know which method is best. So let's dive into this easy to understand guide. There are 3 general transport options from Narita Airport: trains, buses, or taxis, including pre-booked taxi services. We'll cover all of them, including prices, but do note that these are current as of the video publication. For regularly updated costs and deals, do also check out our article on the topic. Alright, let's dive in, starting first with the express trains. There are 2 running from Narita Airport: the Keisei Skyliner, which offers the quickest travel time into East Tokyo, and the Narita Express, which is slower but will take you directly to some of Tokyo's major stations. Both trains operate as dedicated airport services with reserved seating and luggage racks. They also both have power outlets and free Wi-Fi available, which is handy if you haven't picked up a SIM card or pocket Wi-Fi yet. The Keisei Skyliner will get you to either Nippori or Ueno Station for 2,570 yen one way. From both of these stops, you can transfer onto the convenient Yamanote line or the Hibiya and Ginza subway lines from Ueno Station. For purchasing tickets, you have 2 options. To save a little money and stress, you can buy a discount ticket online before traveling to Japan, and then collect it from the Keisei ticket counter at the airport. Alternatively, if you are purchasing a ticket on the day, you can do that at the ticket counter or the ticket machine. The ticket machines have an English option and allow you to select your departure time and seats. One thing to note is that there are 2 fares, the passenger ticket and the liner ticket. You need both to use the Skyliner, but if you have an IC card such as Suica, you can use this to pay for the passenger ticket portion. And if everything that I just said sounded like random words to you, don't worry, check out our dedicated video on Suica. One thing to note is that there are 2 fares, the passenger ticket and the liner ticket. You need both to use the Skyliner, but if you have an IC card such as Suica, you can use this to pay for the passenger ticket portion. And if everything that I just said sounded like random words to you, don't worry, check out our dedicated video on Suica, Tokyo's convenient, rechargeable transport card. Once you've got your ticket, follow signs for the Keisei line to the ticket gate, and then once you're through, follow the orange signs to the Access Express platform. If you're traveling on a budget, then a cheaper tip is to use the slower Sky Access or mainline trains, also running on the Keisei line. These don't have reserved seats but are less than half the price. For everything you need to know about these options, visit our dedicated Keisei line article in the card link. The second express train option, the Narita Express, will get you to Tokyo Station for 3,070 yen or Shinjuku for 3,250 yen one way. This is by no means the quickest or cheapest transport from Narita, but it is very convenient with a direct train to stations even as far as Yokohama. Just make sure to check the timetable carefully, as all trains stop at Tokyo Station, but then the route splits into 2 after that. You can buy tickets online at the JR East website or on the day at the JR East Travel Service Center or ticket machine. Similar to the Keisei Skyliner, the language can be changed to English, and then you'll want to select seat reservation for the Narita Express. Payment can be made using cash, Suica, or credit card, and you will receive 2 tickets, one for the base fare and one for the reserved seat. Once you're ready to board, follow signs for the JR line and use your base fare ticket to enter through the gate. If you're flying in and out of Narita within 14 days, then a great option for non-Japanese passport holders is the next Tokyo round-trip ticket. You can use this for a round trip between Narita and any of the stations serviced by the Narita Express. Buy it online at the JR East website or at the Airport Travel Service Center. Finally, the Narita Express is covered by the JR Pass. However, we only recommend activating your pass and using it for this if you'll be continuing on to other cities immediately after. Next up are buses. In general, buses are not the quickest, but they are convenient, stopping directly outside a number of major stations and hotels. We've got some regular and budget options for you. The Narita Airport Limousine Bus is 3,200 yen one way, with routes passing through some major locations in Tokyo. The service usually takes around 90 minutes and 2 pieces of luggage up to 30 kilos are allowed per person. You can book tickets online for a slightly discounted price or buy them on the day at the airport bus counter. There are also easy-to-use ticket machines available with English support. If buying at the airport, you can also make use of the 14-day return voucher for the cheap price of 4,500 yen. If you're on a budget, then there are 2 low-cost buses to choose from. The airport bus Tokyo to Narita is 1,300 yen during the day and will get you to Tokyo or Ginza Station in around 60 to 80 minutes. You are only allowed 1 piece of standard luggage per person, and tickets can only be purchased on the day at the airport's low-cost bus counter. The Narita Airport shuttle bus will get you from the airport to Ikebukuro Station in 80 minutes for 1,900 yen if you book at the low-cost counter, or 1,500 yen if you book online 24 hours before departure. The final option for getting into the city is to take a taxi from the airport. Hailing a regular taxi is expensive, costing upwards of 22,000 yen, so we wouldn't recommend this option. However, pre-booked taxi services can be a good choice if you're looking for convenience or traveling in a group. There are 2 to choose from, a pre-booked private taxi or shared taxi. For up to 6 people, a private taxi will set you back around 20,000 yen per car. If you're not traveling in a group, a shared taxi for 7,000 yen per person is also a great option. Both types can be booked online, and depending on your destination, the journey should take around 1 hour. Now you're all caught up on how to get from Narita Airport into Tokyo. Subscribe and check out our other video guides like riding the Shinkansen and Tokyo day trips. See you in the next one. If you're on a budget, then there are 2 low-cost buses to choose from. The airport bus Tokyo to Narita is 1,300 yen during the day and will get you to Tokyo or Ginza Station in around 60 to 80 minutes.
You've just arrived in Japan, you're ready to start exploring, you're gonna hop on public transport. Do you use paper tickets? No, don't be silly, use a Suica. I'm your host Amy, and today I'm also here with Alex, and we're gonna be showing you everything to do with Suica.
The Suica card is a rechargeable pass for a whole bunch of train lines and other public transport in Japan. The start of this video may have sounded like a commercial for Suica, but alas, it is not. Instead, this is a comprehensive guide to using the Suica card on your travels around Japan's cities. With this rechargeable card, you don't need to worry about calculating fares and paper tickets. You'll have one convenient and easy method for transport. So stick with us as we cover everything from how to buy a Suica card to getting a refund once your Japan trip is over. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of buying and recharging your Suica, let's take a quick look at the bigger picture of Japan's transport system. Each major area in Japan has its own rechargeable transport card. But don't worry, the great thing is all these major cards are compatible with each other. So for example, if you buy a Suica card in Tokyo but are later traveling to Osaka, you can still use the Suica card on public transport there. In Tokyo, there are actually two cards available, Suica and Passmo. They're made by different companies, but long story short, the two cards are almost identical and cover the same train lines and areas. So while we'll mostly be talking about Suica in this guide, if you happen to pick up a Passmo instead, most of the information will be the same. Suica can be used on trains, subways, most buses, and to some extent even on the Shinkansen. But at least for now, using Suica on the Shinkansen requires either a setup process or using a Japanese website for bookings. So for short-term travel, it's probably easier to stick to paper tickets or the JR Pass. Alright, let's talk about the first step to using one of these magical cards, buying it. Where and how do you get a Suica card? If you want to be really organized, you can buy one online and have it shipped to your home before your trip. Visit our Suica card article for the info on that. But otherwise, the main places you can purchase a card are at any JR East ticket machine or at the JR East travel service centers. If you want to pick one up as soon as you arrive, you can do this at both Narita and Haneda Airport. Or you can always grab a Suica or Passmo card from a ticket machine at any train station once you're in the city. Before we show you how to purchase one from the ticket machine, let's quickly talk about a special card designed for tourists. Welcome Suica and Passmo Passport are rechargeable cards designed for short-term travel. The main difference is they automatically expire after 28 days and you cannot get a refund for the remaining balance. The Welcome Suica doesn't have a 500 yen deposit though, so depending on how you're using it, this could be convenient. You can pick these up at service centers at Narita and Haneda Airport. Okay, let's imagine you've just landed in Japan and you want to buy a Suica card from the ticket machine. Let's show you how to do that.
Alright, first up, of course, what you have to do is buy the Suica card, so let us show you. First, we're going to change to English.
Guidance will be displayed in English.
Perfect. And then what we do is we want to purchase a new Suica card. Now, with the new Suica card, you can get either just a normal one or you can get one with your name inscribed on it. The advantages of this is that if your name is on it, if it gets lost, then it'll easily be able to get back to you. However, it is a little bit extra money. So it's up to you whether you want to do that. We're Tokyo cheapos, so we're just going to do the cheap option today and get a blank Suica card. So we'll come over and press that. And as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of different amounts that we can put on. The cheapest one is 1,000 yen. That's going to be a 500 yen deposit and then 500 yen that you can use while you're traveling. There is always this 500 yen deposit, but you can get that back later, so no worries. Again, today we're just going to go with the cheapest option, the 1,000 yen. So let's click on that. Alright, and one last thing to note is that you can only use cash for most of these machines, so you can't use credit card. Let me get my cash here. Alright, so we got our 1,000 yen bill. Pop that in the slot. Ta-da! Our brand new Suica card.
There's also a child Suica card for children up to the age of 12. The fare is half price, however you need to buy this from the ticket service center and show proof of age. Once you've got your Suica card, you're all set for travel around the city. Just tap your card on the card reader as you walk through the ticket gate, both when you're entering and exiting the station. When exiting, the display on the gate will show the fare amount and the remaining balance on your card. So, what about if you've done a bunch of amazing travel and need to recharge your card?
Oh, hi Amy. I'm low on my Suica. Let's go.
Just like buying the Suica, you can recharge at any ticket machine. Simply feed your card into the card slot, change the language to English, and then choose the amount you would like to add. Once this is done, just add your cash into the machine, grab your change, and you're finished. If you've just completed a trip and on exiting discover that you don't have enough money on your card to cover the fare, there are fare adjustment machines, usually just inside the ticket gates, where you can recharge your card in the same way. Alright, you've finished your dream trip around Japan, and just like any of us cheapos, want to get back the remaining money on your card. To do this, just pop into a ticket service center. Simply hand in your card to the staff, they'll do the math, and you get your money back in cash. There's a 220 yen fee for returning the card, which is taken from the remaining balance. But even if your balance is zero, you'll still get back the whole 500 yen deposit. The staff may be able to help you in English, depending on the station. We went to the service center in Shinjuku and got great English help. The Suica card is not just magical because it makes public transport easy. It can also be used as a payment method at many shops and convenience stores, for station lockers, and at vending machines. Basically, just look for the Suica logo.
Amy, I'm a bit thirsty. You can use your Suica for more than just getting on a train. Now what do I want? Da, 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 da.
In the age of technology and convenience, you may have already guessed that the Suica and Passmo cards can be used virtually on your phone as well. There are some restrictions though. For iPhone users, the main caveat is you need to change the phone's region to Japan to be able to add the card to the wallet app. For Android users, you need to have a phone bought in Japan to be able to use the card through Google Pay. So, if you're a long-term visitor to Japan, this might be a great option. But if you're only doing a short trip, it may be easier to stick with the physical card.
Hopefully now you're all across how to use a Suica on your travels here in Tokyo, Japan. We hope you really enjoy them, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye!